everyone, my name is Holly Grand and I work with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department's Coastal Fisheries Division. The video you're about to watch is a recording of a webinar that took place on Tuesday, December 6, 2022, regarding an upcoming study being done by our coastal fisheries biologists. The purpose of this webinar was to introduce anglers to our state wildlife grant funded project, where we are looking to study and test different methods for collecting data related to nighttime flounder catch. For more information about the project itself, please see the description below. To keep up with the progress of this study, be sure to follow us on our Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Coastal Fisheries Division Facebook page, where you can find us at TPWD Coastal. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hanna Bauer. I'm the team lead for the policy and education team here in Austin, and I will be facilitating this webinar this evening. I want to go over a few reminders before we get started. So as participants, your cameras, microphones, and chat are disabled during this webinar. If you have questions during the presentation today, you can use that Q&A feature that's located, should be flashing on the screen right now, in the bottom Zoom screen. It looks like 2 chat bubbles, and we will be answering all of the relevant questions to this presentation and the study at the end of the presentation. But feel free, as we go along and you think of questions, you can go ahead and put those in the Q&A sooner. You don't have to wait to the end to ask the question. The recording of this webinar will be available on the TPWD Education YouTube channel within the next 5 to 10 business days, and you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to that YouTube channel, as well as an email address that you can reach us with any additional questions about the study. And I will go ahead and switch into our presentation now. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. Today we're going to talk about the nighttime flounder harvest study that Texas Parks and Wildlife will be conducting over the next year. Today we'll give a brief overview of the study. We'll talk about what data we're collecting and how we're going to go about collecting that data. And then at the end, we'll demonstrate how you can report your catch and share your data with us for the purpose of this study. This is being conducted by Texas Parks and Wildlife Coastal Fisheries. The policy and education team has received a state wildlife grant to conduct this study to start to get at what's going on, the data of the nighttime flounder harvest. And we'll be doing so partially with the My Texas Hunt and Harvest app. I'll show you slides of that in just a moment. So before we begin, the purpose of this workshop is really to share information about this upcoming study. Again, what data we're collecting, how we're doing it, as well as how we're asking the public to participate voluntarily. And then we're going to introduce and demonstrate how to use the My Texas Hunt and Harvest mobile application. I want to be clear, we're not going to talk about flounder regulation changes today. For those that were changed in 2020, we aren't going to talk about those, or there are no proposed flounder regulation changes. If you would like to talk about that, you can always email us, or at the August commission meeting, there is a chance for general public comment that you can share those opinions that you have there. So the purpose of this study is to really get a handle on what's going on with flounder nighttime harvest. Right now, that represents a data gap in our fishery dependent data that's collected by people using the resource and targeting these species. These standard daytime creels that we do, they don't intersect with the nighttime flounder anglers. We realize that many of the folks out at night are in fact giggers, but there are a couple rod and reels, so I'll refer to those as anglers in general. Anglers and Texas Parks and Wildlife staff alike saw the need to gather this data on that nighttime fishery. This study really is in direct response to a lot of comments we received during those 2020 regulation changes that said, we would like to share our data with you, or interested in participating with more data sharing, specifically about the nighttime flounder fishery. And really, this is a pilot study to see if the data collected, if the methods we're using to collect this data can be expanded in some capacity to the entire coast. So we're really looking at some methods that are standard, like the creel surveys that y'all will see during the day and the roves, but we're using a couple different methods as well to see, is there a way in terms of logistics that we could expand this monitoring to the entire coast of Texas. And this study is a small piece to test sort of a proof of concept or to test the idea of that. The goals of this study are to quantify and characterize night flounder harvest in the Matagorda, San Antonio Bay, and the Aransas Bay areas. Again, this is a pilot study, so we're picking a smaller area to test these methods. We're going to test the use of a self-reporting app for angler harvest. As well, we're going to use traffic counters to quantify the night boat ramp use. Thinking to the future, if we want to continue to collect data to fill this data gap, it would be interesting if we had a way that was a less human-powered or less logistically difficult way for the agency to get this data rather than have technicians out at night to gather that. The methods for this study that we have the reporting app that's featured on the keychain here. That's My Texas Hunt and Harvest. The app is already existing. Some of you may use it to report red drum tags or for hunting deer. It allows all anglers to self-report catch. While we're mostly focusing on that nighttime fishery, we do welcome reports during the day as well and outside of the bays of interest. The questions on the app are going to be similar to the creel questions, asking about what boat ramp you went out of, the length of your trip, how many fish you caught, and the lengths of those fish. As I said, this app is existing in the Apple App Store right now and for Android users, but the flounder harvest is not yet live. That will go live on December 15th, and I'll show you more about that in just a second. We're also using social media and outreach, like this webinar here, to promote the app and study promote the app, on social media and at community events in order to really make sure that we have a strong user group reporting data for that app. And then we'll also have online app tutorials. Finally, we're going to have the creels, the roves, and the traffic counters. So night creels will start at the season opening on December 15th. The traffic counters will be placed overnight at boat ramps, and we'll compare that to the rove data. So we have sort of these humanless methods, not completely humanless, but TPWD lists, where we have the reporting app and we have the traffic counters at boat ramps, and we're going to compare to see how well those data match what we collect during our nighttime creels to see if those are useful methods that we can use in the future to fill this data gap. So our study area here, this is Aransas Bay. We'll also go into San Antonio Bay and Matagorda and East Matagorda. We will be creeling most of the boat ramps in this area, but importantly, we will still get data from San Antonio Bay because we will be at the boat ramp, not necessarily in the bay itself. And then as well, the Texas A&M Corpus Christi group is doing a creel survey in the Upper Laguna Madre, some bay ramps in the Upper Laguna Madre, as well as the Corpus Christi Bay system. They're using pretty similar methods to us, so we'll be able to compare their data and overall have a larger study area. So the benefits of citizen science, this is asking y'all to report your data to us. It's a very similar program to iSnapper, if folks have used that as well. It lets the largest stakeholder group actively participate in research, which is a huge benefit both to us as an agency and to y'all to be directly involved in the science that goes on here on the Texas coast. Anglers can cover a lot more area than the limited number of biologists that we have. And the recreational fishing data continues to be one of the hardest sectors to collect comprehensive data from. It works really well for a flounder study because they're very easy to identify. So there's less of a worry that the species will be misidentified or that there's problems with the data in terms of what species we're using. And how do we use the catch data? So we'll input some of this into our estimation models to get a sense of the harvest pressure on snapper. The rows and which are the trailer counts at the boat ramps, will help us estimate the fishing pressure. We can monitor change in the fishery trends over time. We can evaluate the population size and structure, as well as the distribution of flounder. And more data helps us to have more accurate harvest projections and trends. I'd like to emphasize as well that the data that we're collecting here will help us test that that the app data and that the traffic counter data are useful and valid method to collect data for this fishery. And how can you help? We would like anglers to report catches on the My Texas Hunt and Harvest app. I'll show you screenshots of that in just a second, and then we'll be able to ground truth this data with our nighttime creels. Again, that's the idea that we're matching the data that y'all report with the data that we collect so we can validate that this is a useful method. So the My Texas Hunt and Harvest app is available now. You'll click on the fish button in the top middle screen. You can go ahead and click on your account if you have one existing, or you can create one as well. It's linked to your fishing license number. You can look for the flounder under the report fish harvest. So it's under this voluntary reporting, and it should say flounder. Again, this is going live on December 15th. It will not be available right now if you were to download the app, but will automatically update on the 15th for y'all. From there, you'll select the date that you fished. If your trip crossed over midnight, you'll select the day that your trip started. And enter information about your trip. Again, this is pretty similar to the creels that we do at the dock, where you'll put your start time, how long was your trip in hours and minutes, the trip type, if it was with a guide, a private boat, or bank fishing. We ask for your boat or registration number. This is to help match the data with the creel surveys. We do ask for that during the creel survey. So having the boat number will help us link that data. And then the gear type, if it's gigging, rod and reel, or a combination of the two of them. And then you can select major bay and minor bay where you caught most of your flounder. You can search and it will auto-populate. You can select the minor bay. And then based off of the major bay you put in, the boat ramp will pop up. Those boat ramps that are crossover sites in between major bays should pop up on both. From there, you can enter the number of flounder kept and released. And for the number of fish that were kept, you can enter the lengths in inches and 3/4 inches. Finally, you'll see a summary screen that has all the data that you entered. You can double check it and go back if there's a mistake or something was mistyped and submit your report. And then you can go on fishing. I'll go ahead and stop here and pause for any questions. It looks like there was one in the chat that I'll go ahead and read aloud. Do you want us to collect data only when we harvest the fish, or if we practice catch and release also? So yeah, that's correct. If we go back to this slide, maybe, I'm not sure. Here, you can see there's a slot for number of flounder release. So we're happy to collect both of those data. Any other questions? We'll hang around a little bit to answer any in the chat. I see one now in the chat that says, do we have to report our catch? No, this is completely voluntary. So this is not required by any way by Texas Parks and Wildlife. This is a voluntary study that you can participate in to help us fill that data gap and conduct some citizen science, but in no way is it voluntary. Here's another question in the chat. Will this data be used as a positive or negative regarding the flounder population? The truth is we don't know. We aren't sure what the results of this study are going to be. Like I said at the beginning, this study isn't tied to any planned regulation changes that we have proposed, it's really trying to get at this data gap that we have, and is a direct response to many folks that shared that they would like to share their data. Typically, we tend to rely more on fishery independent data to make regulation changes, but certainly we can see what's going on in harvest pressure and get at some of those population changes with this fishery dependent data as well. I'll answer this one live. Will the app accept data from participants outside your core study areas? Absolutely. While we're mostly focusing our creels and roves and traffic counters within this area, we will accept data coast-wide. That helps give us a sense of who is willing to use this app and who is willing to report their catch. So we'll absolutely accept that data as well. Someone asked if we release, should we indicate links? Currently, there isn't a field in the app to do that. So no, we aren't asking for the length of the released fish at this time. There was a question, how long are you doing this? This pilot study will take place for 1 year, but we plan to evaluate these methods for potential expansion to other areas of the coast in the future as well. Someone asked, will this data be released to the public? We do have plans at the end of the study when we wrap up and we start to analyze the data to conduct another workshop like what we're doing tonight to actually present the results of that. So if we have your contact information or if you found this webinar on our social media, you should keep an eye out in about a year, 14 months from now, probably closer to 14 months, we will have another webinar where we present the results of this study. And as always, with any Parks and Wildlife data, you can request that through an open records request, and we're happy to share that as well. Someone asked, why is the focus on nighttime harvest and not both day and night harvest? So right now, the daytime harvest is captured in our current daytime creel surveys. So this is sort of an expansion of that program to capture that temporal or that night component that we don't currently have. So we are and have been monitoring the daytime harvest of flounder as well as all species on the coast for many years now. Someone asked, what about all the captains that do this for a living? Will it affect their livelihood? This study is completely voluntary, so we aren't requiring any reporting of the captains. And to emphasize again, this is not tied to regulation changes. This is simply to fill a data gap to understand what the harvest is of the nighttime flounder. So no, it will not affect their livelihood. Dacus, do you want to handle this one? Is TPWD planning on any new regulation changes on flounder? Dacus is our Deputy Director of Coastal Fisheries, also based here in Austin.
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. Gang, we're constantly evaluating our fisheries, both independent and dependent data for not only recreational, but for the commercial sector. We don't have any regulation plans for flounder at this time, but we will continue to evaluate and really build upon the data set that Hannah alluded to, that we heard loud and clear from the last regulation package in 2019, and we acknowledge that data gap exists with the nighttime fishery. So really that is the purpose of this particular effort, a 1-year pilot study to get a better handle on that, to see how that goes and really evaluate if that has utility for future efforts and potential incorporating a nighttime creel component into our fishery dependent monitoring program. But at this time, no, we do not have any flounder regulations in the immediate future.
I'll clarify, someone asked in the chat, what exactly is a released gig flounder? Great point. The number of flounder released fields would mainly apply to the few rod and reel anglers. Obviously, if you gig a flounder and release it, it will not likely survive. So this field would not apply to those that are gigged. We had a question come in. The current closure said it would take 3 to 4 years before any improvements are evident in the flounder population. Is there any way to check the status of your current surveys on the current progress? We actually just did an updated a flounder update for our commission during this past November meeting. That is available online you can watch the recording of that if you'd like. So we are reevaluating that yearly, and that's available online for a population update. We had a question in the chat. Without links, how can you convert these numbers to a biomass estimate for nighttime fisheries? So the fishery dependent data is only one component of our evaluation. So, and we are collecting links both on the creel surveys that we will be doing at night, and you can see on the slide that is up, we will have the length of the fishes as well. I think that with the fishery dependent data, obviously you're not getting the lengths of the full population structure because there is a slot limit there. But we can start to infer something about the size structure of the population with this fishery dependent data nonetheless. Someone asked, will this data be analyzed regionally, or will studies be done, or will studies done in these areas represent the statewide biomass? These will be analyzed regionally. We are doing just a subset of the coast, so it will not be expanded unless if we have data from those regions, of course. And typically we tend to look at data regionally regardless. There's a question in the chat. Are anglers that are on guided trips encouraged to report, or will that data be captured through alternative methods? And anglers on the guided trips will be encouraged to report, and we have been working with the flounder guides as well. If they would like to volunteer their data, we've been working with them as well. Someone asked, is this for commercial fishing and gigging for flounder or for recreational gigging? The study is focused on the recreational fishing for flounder. Data on commercial flounder fishing is captured by the mandatory trip ticket reporting system, which all commercial catch is required to report through. So this is focused on recreational anglers. Someone asked, when you mentioned traffic counters at boat ramps, are you planning on using these unmanned traffic counters for those similar to the ones used on roadways? And correct, they're the same type, those tubes that sometimes you see on the road. And we're using that as a substitute for the Rove data, or for a comparison between the Rove data that typically goes around and counts the number of trailers at ramps. So we're hoping to capture that data in a way that doesn't require having a staff member present at the boat ramps. Will Texas A&M Corpus Christi have a webinar on their study, or will they let the public know? I am not aware of any studies, or rather workshops or meetings that they may hold. You can go ahead and contact the Heart Institute to get more information on that. We have set up our studies so we're able to share the data that the creel methods are similar. But for details of that study, I'll let the authors of that speak to that. Someone asked who they should contact at HRI. That's the Greg Stuntz lab is leading that study. Someone asked if we had any data on the previous closure. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking for there. Again, I'll direct you, Dacus that's on the call tonight did an update on the flounder population at the commission meeting just last month. So we have those ready. And if you have any specific questions about data, you can always email our CFish email, which is here, and make a data request, or ask us questions. We're happy to field those for you then. Someone asked, are the limits changing at all for commercial fishing? And there are no current proposals to change commercial flounder regulations or recreational flounder regulations for that matter. Someone asked, right now, is southern flounder overfished or currently undergoing overfishing based off of our estimate, flounder populations have been in decline across their distribution in the Gulf Coast. and along the East Coast up through North Carolina, not just in Texas. All right, we're at an hour now, and I don't see any other questions left in the chat. As always, you're welcome to email us with questions at this email address here. You might see some of our technicians out at the boat ramps at night. Feel free to ask them as well. And we hope you would like to participate in our study. I'll emphasize one more time that it's voluntary, and we appreciate y'all being with us tonight. Thank you very much.